Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Abigail and today I'm going to be talking about probably one of my most life-changing decisions in the plant world, and that is going SemiHydro or passive hydro, or just not growing my plants in soil. I'm also drinking coffee out of this like super cute little cat mug. It's so good. Trader Joe's decaf because it's, 4:30 and I should not be having caffeine. So good. I have a whole entire notebook over here full of stuff to talk about. We're gonna try and get through this as fast as I can, and I'm just going to make this video kind of a super brief overview, and I'm going to kind of break down each topic area in separate videos, because if I did everything in one video, this video would probably be an hour long, and that is not cool. I started on my SemiHydro plant journey back in the summer of 2019, so it's been about 8 months now that my plants have been growing in SemiHydro, and it was the most scary transition I've ever made, but it's the best decision I've ever made in my entire life in my plant world. I highly recommend SemiHydro to honestly everyone. My plants are thriving. They've never looked this good ever, and I don't have to worry about watering. I don't have to worry about overwatering, underwatering, just trying to figure out that whole thing. And there's not soil all over my house. And it's so much cleaner, it's so much easier, and it's so much less effort than soil. So I am a huge advocate for growing your plants in SemiHydro. SemiHydro is essentially using a different medium, which is a porous medium. It's made of clay balls. I'll show you guys this one right here. This is a little pilea that I have growing in it, but it's these little clay balls, and it works through capillary action. So the water, I spilled my coffee. So sad. The clay balls will wick up the water through capillary action and provide the plant with water and nutrients that way. You can find it pretty much anywhere. You can buy it on Amazon, you can buy it at IKEA, you can buy it at your local hydroponics store. A lot of people are starting to sell it now because it's becoming more and more popular, so you can find it pretty much anywhere. I currently use, I think it's Hydroton, I don't know. It's from my local hydroponics store. I just went and I was like, I need whatever you have, and that's what they gave me, and it works. The leca has absolutely no nutrients in it, so you have to make sure to provide the plant that nutrients, otherwise your plant will suffer. And some of my plants have suffered because I had them just in plain water for too long, and I can show you guys in another video what that looks like. But essentially you have 3 main parts. You have the nutrient water, you have the leca, well, I guess 4 parts. You have your plant, and then you have whatever container you are keeping your plant in. I also wanted to talk about pros and cons because, in my opinion, my humble opinion, the pros far outweigh the cons. Before I started in SemiHydro, I had a huge fungus gnat issue, and if you've ever had a fungus gnat issue, it is so annoying. You're just sitting there and a little gnat will just fly up your nose or to fly in your eye, and it's just, no thank you. No more, I'm done with that. So I kept researching about growing plants in SemiHydro, and back about a year ago, there wasn't a lot of information, and I probably researched this for 6 months. By the time I first started getting into houseplants, up until I transitioned my plants, I was doing research and I couldn't find anything, and I was so nervous. And then I found Minimalist Callie on YouTube, and she had a bunch of intro videos that kind of really just made me do it. And then I found some Instagram accounts as well that made me really push me to transition my more prized possession plants, like my Hoyas and my Monstera Adansonii and stuff like that. The biggest thing for me is no fungus gnats. Second biggest thing is I don't have to worry about underwatering or overwatering, because in my soil life experience, I struggle a lot with knowing when a plant needs water. I'm always afraid of overwatering, so I'm a chronic underwaterer, and I keep things on the drier side, which means my plants aren't thriving like they should be. But now I literally have no problems with keeping my plants happy and healthy and for the most part pest-free because they're relatively healthy plants. Another big plus to this whole SemiHydro setup is the fact that it is sustainable. Once you get it set up, there's basically no maintenance involved except for, you know, having to rinse your leca once a month. But other than that, it's very minimal, and the leca is reusable. So you buy the leca once and you can keep reusing it and reusing it. It's not like soil where if you have a plant that has root rot or fungus gnats, you are definitely not going to be reusing that soil. So for leca, you can totally reuse things, and it is wonderful. I will have a whole video about how I reuse my leca, but I'm gonna get to that in a minute as well. The biggest con I have found, and the biggest reason why people don't want to convert to SemiHydro up front, is the time and the cost. It does take a lot of time, especially if you have a lot of houseplants, to convert things slowly and, you know, make sure you're doing it properly, and hopefully your plants don't die. So that can be a big one. Cost can be a huge barrier for some people, especially leca can range anywhere from like a small bag for like $6 that you can get at IKEA to a big 50-liter bag. I think mine was 30 or 40. And so with that, you know, I was able to transition almost all of my houseplants. So think about all the soil costs and all that stuff adding up, and then when you repot, like, you can't reuse the soil and all that fun stuff. So leca in the long run will save you money, but up front it can be kind of expensive. Page 1 is down. Page 2. Cool. We're gonna use this little Pilea, peperomioides. He's so cute. He suffered from root rot a few weeks ago, and then like I just put him back in here, and like now he's stuck in here, which is good. Okay, so your materials. You need, of course, you need leca. You need a plant. Duh. You need an outer net pot or nursery pot. I don't use net pots because I have an abundance of nursery pots, so I just use essentially whatever the plant comes in from the store. Then you need an outer pot or a cache pot. I feel so fancy when I say cache pot. It's like, haha. And that can be as simple as a plastic cup. It can be a pot without drainage. It can be a bowl. Like some of my plants are just in their little nursery pot sitting in a bowl. Doesn't have to be super fancy up front, but eventually, you know, you might want to make it look a little nicer than just having your stuff in a bowl. And then you need nutrients. So you need nutrient solution, and then you also need just time and patience. This can take a lot of time to convert a plant because you have to, you know, take the plant out of its soil, then you have to remove all the soil from the roots, put it in the leca, monitor it. You know, you want to check on it, especially in the first part. I would say every week, every 2 weeks, to make sure those roots aren't rotting and that everything is transitioning properly in the way that it should be transitioning. Sometimes it just takes a lot of time, especially if you have a lot of plants. I also want to just briefly touch on plants that I've had experience with that do super well in SemiHydro. That would be pothos and philodendron. This is a just heartleaf philodendron. Another one is peperomia. They seem to do really well. Then we have monstera. I have my big dude in the back over there. I just converted him, and he's in a moss pole, so he's doing really well. I showed this in my Hoya video, but this is a Hoya. Hoyas do really well in SemiHydro. I will insert a clip of when I moved these Hoyas into a new home, and I'll show you their roots. And another plant that does really well are ficus. This is a ficus ruby. She's growing kind of sideways. I need to put a little stick in here to keep her upright, but they do really well as well. As most people know, calatheas are pretty tricky plants, and I found them to be also fairly tricky to convert into SemiHydro as well. Sometimes they transition super easily, piece of cake, and then other times they'll be doing fine in SemiHydro, and then you change the water and then they die. So that's like really up to you if you want to transition your calatheas. I have mine in SemiHydro, but the water level is super high, so it's essentially just like growing them in water, but the leca just holds them in the container. So when you're first choosing a plant to transition, I would suggest a smaller, more immature plant. The bigger the plant, the more it could stress out the plant and cause it to go into shock and possibly die. So we don't want that. So I would recommend starting with more immature plants so you don't lose the biggest prize pieces in your collection. I have been doing SemiHydro for, like I said, 8 months, and it took me 8 months to decide to put my Monstera in SemiHydro, so that should tell you something. To convert a plant, essentially what you do is you take the plant, you take all the soil off the roots. I rinse the roots underwater to kind of get some of that extra soil off, and then you fill up a nursery pot with about 1/3 of leca, then you put the plant in and then fill it up the rest of the way. I like to start out my plants in like a bowl or something so I can monitor the water level a little better, but so you don't have to. But then you fill up the water to about 1/4 to 1/3 up on the nursery pot. I start out with water when I transition a plant. I don't give them any nutrients, at least for like the first few weeks, like to a month, because I want them to be establishing the roots. I don't want to burn them or shock them with nutrient solution. So I know some people feed their plants right away once they put them into leca, but I don't, and that's really a personal preference. So it's up to you to kind of like experiment and, I don't know, see what works for you. I'm sure a question that I will get is if I have lost any plants in SemiHydro, and the answer is 100% yes. Actually, the first 2 plants I transitioned was a Tenanthe and then an Alocasia poly, and they did really, really, really well. And then the Alocasia got spider mites and it died. And then the Tenanthe got root rot and it died, and I don't know. Sometimes you never know what's gonna happen to your plants, and that just seemed to happen. So there's that. But yes, I have killed plants. I have also found that the pothos with more variegation on them, so the wider pothi, what would that be? The one that has more variegation on them tend to rot a tad bit easier in SemiHydro, so you have to be a little careful with the water level on those, but overall my plants are thriving. So the nutrients that I use are, oh goodness, are the General Hydroponics Bloom series, so the Flora Bloom, Flora Grow, and then Flora Micro. So this is what these look like. Oh, 3 of these. And I mix about 2 milliliters per gallon of each. I'm not very accurate. I mixed them all in a big gallon pitcher, so I just do it by the gallon. I do like 1 milliliter, 2 milliliters of each. Mix it up, and my plants are so happy. I also have a pH meter and pH up, pH down, but I don't find myself needing those. Luckily here, our pH is pretty good in our water, so we don't have too many pH issues. But if your water is acidic or basic, you just pH up, pH down, whatever you need. Since I don't have a lot of experience in that, I'm not gonna go into super detail about that. But I feed my plants once a month. I rinse my leca once a month, and they seem to be doing okay. I usually take them all into the shower in their nursery pots, rinse them to get rid of some of that salt buildup, and then they're good to go for the next month. And so I'll put nutrient water in them after I rinse them, and then I'll just top off with regular water because I don't want that concentration of nutrients to get too high and burn them and kill them. So that's what I do, and it seems to be working really, really well. I'm gonna briefly touch on some of the setups because I do get questions about this. So the first most common setup is something like this. This is my Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. It is my wish list plant that I got for $10, and I'm so happy. But this dude is in leca. He is thriving, I think. He's not showing signs of dying. I just transitioned him. But this is just a cash po with a nursery pot in it, and there is nutrient solution. This is just water in it right now, but so he just sits in there, and that's where he lives. And I just top off the water. I check about once a week and then top it off. Sometimes I do let them accidentally get a little lower than they should, but that's okay. The second most common way is through something like called a closed system, and that is something like this. Okay, so these plants are never coming out of here unless I want to kill them, because their roots have completely grown in this pot. Well, it's a vase, but I think it looks so cool, and it's just like this little pot, and it has a super long piece of satin pothos, and I just rinse this by filling it up with water and just letting the water flow out, and then just, you know, I keep the water level to about here, and it seems to do really, really well. It's thriving, it's putting out lots of new growth, so these little propagation jars are super fun to make. Let's see, well, we can talk about this one. I showed you guys this one, but this is a little cup with a nursery pot in it, and I also have a wick system in this one. So wick systems are, so the water level is actually below the level of the nursery pot, and there is some string in there that wicks up the water into the leca. It helps with containers, especially that have a deeper reservoir than the nursery pot, so you don't have to like constantly be filling up this water. You can just let it slowly empty out, and it seems to be doing really, really well with most of my plants, so I'm not having any issues. I will say, make sure to use synthetic yarn. Don't use cotton or something like that, because it will start to degrade, and then that's just a mess. So use like synthetic yarn for that. I will say this is my like biggest achievement, is figuring out how to do SemiHydro and terracotta. And the reason why this came about is I made plant shelves for terracotta pots, 4-inch terracotta pots, before I transitioned everything. And then I was like, I'm gonna transition everything. And then I was like, I can't use this anymore. And then I found these vases at the Dollar Tree. And so they're just these glass vases that literally perfectly fit a 4-inch terracotta pot in them. I can't even like begin to explain how it just makes me so happy every time I see this. Plus, I love the look of terracotta and glass. Like, it makes my heart so happy. But in these, I also do have a wick in them, just because the terracotta doesn't go all the way to the bottom of the glass. And because the terracotta is porous, it does also wick up water. So these tend to evaporate a little faster, or a lot faster, than the ones in closed systems where the nursery pot or the inner pot is plastic. So that's my little tip for terracotta. I love terracotta and glass. I think it is a great look. It's really pretty. I do get some algae growth in the bottom, but that is to be expected from having water sitting in the sun. So it happens. It doesn't harm your plant. Clearly, these plants are doing fantastic. So let's say your plant dies in leca and it got root rot or something. And then how do you reuse that leca? How do you clean the leca? So I boil mine. I put it in a big pot. I fill the pot with water, and I just let it boil for like 15-20 minutes, and it kills everything, and it makes it sterile again. And so I just can keep reusing it. And I would say I've had to boil several batches. I'm not proud of that. Okay, not proud of that, but it works. None of my plants that I've like reused leca with have died because of prior leca use. So 10 out of 10, boil your leca. It's super easy, and you shouldn't have to do it that often. So I'm gonna wrap up this video with a few thoughts on SemiHydro and just kind of overall experiences and tips and tricks. So number one, switch your plants to SemiHydro. I highly recommend it. Like, I cannot recommend it enough. If you have any questions, just send them my way and I will help you. There is going to be a blog post that goes along with this at some point. I don't know if the video and the post are going to go up at the same time. I don't know. We shall see. But there will probably be more tips and tricks in that blog post as well. SemiHydro has truly changed my life with plants. It makes my planty life so much easier because I do have like 100 houseplants, not including my succulents. But my plants are a lot happier. I'm a lot happier. I'm a lot less stressed. I can go on vacation and not worry about them. Like, do you know how amazing that is? It's life-changing. So change your plants to SemiHydro. I will say, don't change your plants to SemiHydro that go outside during the summer. I wouldn't personally do that because the water would evaporate so fast because it gets so hot here. But I mean, you do you. If you want to transition your outside plants or your plants that you bring outside during the summer, do that. But I keep those in soil. Those are my only house plants that are in soil, and all the rest are in SemiHydro, and they are thriving and they are loving it. And it's the best thing since sliced bread. Probably not, but you know, I'm just gonna claim that. So transition your houseplants to SemiHydro and your life will be forever changed. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you found it maybe the slightest bit informative. I don't know. Hopefully, crossing my fingers. But if you have any questions, leave them down below. I will gladly answer them. And I'm gonna leave some links for sure of people on YouTube and people on Instagram that have helped me transition into my SemiHydro journey, and they will probably be very inspirational and helpful to you as well. So again, have any questions, let me know. Make sure to read the blog post that goes along with it if it's out yet. Probably not, but it's coming. Yes. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in another planty video very, very soon.